हो सकता है कि सैफ अली खान का पुराना नौकर भी हो। सैफ अली खान जो है पिछले 5 साल से इसी बिल्डिंग में रहते हैं और 12वीं मंजिल के ऊपर जो है उनका घर है। इस पूरे बिल्डिंग में जो है करीब 6 परिवार ही रहते हैं, क्योंकि सभी के जो फ्लैट है वो डुप्लेक्स फ्लैट है। रात को करीब 2 से 3 बजे के बीच में एक चोर सैफ अली खान के घर में घुस गया था और उसके बाद में जब उसकी नौकरानी ने देखा कोई अनजान शख्स को, उसने चिल्लाना शुरू किया। सैफ अली खान रूम से बाहर आए और उन्होंने, जो चोर था उसने 6 चाकू से वार किया है। इस वक्त आप देखें कि मुंबई पुलिस की टीम जो है यहाँ मौजूद है। पुलिस का मानना है कि बेसमेंट के एरिया से जो है शायद चोर अंदर घुसा होगा, क्योंकि पुलिस का ये भी मानना है कि बेसमेंट से ही गया होगा, क्योंकि बेसमेंट में जो है रात के समय में कोई भी सिक्योरिटी गार्ड वहाँ मौजूद नहीं रहता है। और साथ में यहाँ बाजू में भी जो एक बंगलो है जिसकी भी हाइट जो है काफ़ी कम है। पुलिस का ये भी अंदेशा है कि चोर जो है इसी बंगलो से भी अंदर गया होगा। हालांकि मुंबई पुलिस जो है फ़िलहाल सभी उसकी जांच चल रही है कि क्या वहाँ पे हुआ होगा और क्या नहीं हुआ होगा। सभी पहलू की छानबीन जो है फ़िलहाल यहाँ चल रही है। इस बंगलों के आसपास भी जितने सीसीटीवी थे उसकी छानबीन पुलिस ने यहाँ की है। आप ये बंगलो देखिए। फर्नांडिस परिवार जो है पिछले 60 साल से यहाँ पर रहता है, उनकी भी पूछताछ जो है मुंबई पुलिस ने की है। और साथ में ही जो नौकरानी जिसने सबसे पहले जो है चोर को देखा था उसका भी स्टे
Hello, Namaskar. This is First Post and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. The United States is targeting Russian oil again. Will India pay the price for it? Tonight we look at the developments and trends in the global oil market, how America's geopolitical agenda is hurting economies and how it may be a problem for India. In West Asia, Israel and Hamas have finally agreed to a ceasefire, but this has triggered a battle in Washington. The battle for credit. Who struck this deal? Donald Trump or Joe Biden? We'll look at how this is playing out. Biden has made his final address as president, full of warnings for Americans. He talks about tech moguls and oligarchy. Sounds like a case of sour grapes. In California, the wildfires are still burning and they may char the political prospects of its Democratic governor, Gavin Newsom. In Mumbai, Bollywood actor Saif Ali Khan stabbed in his home. We'll tell you what happened. Why are so many Indians facing visa rejections and what does it cost them? Why has short seller Hindenburg shut shop out of the blue? Why are Harvard graduates and other MBAs not finding jobs? How ISRO's first ever space docking has made India part of an elite club of nations? And how are insects named? The latest spider names inspired by Chinese pop music are making waves. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. China retaliates against tech sanctions by the US, Beijing to launch a probe into American exports of chips, which are used in everything from cars to home appliances. China cites concerns over dumping and subsidies. Beijing has accused Washington of protectionism after the US increased its curbs on chip exports to China. Loud blasts and air raid sirens heard over Ukraine's capital as air defense systems in central Kiev repel Russian drone attacks. This comes as British Prime Minister Keir Starmer visits Kiev in an unannounced trip. He signed a 100-year agreement with Ukraine pledging to strengthen defense ties. The Indonesian president will be the chief guest at India's Republic Day celebrations. Prabowo Subianto will be visiting the country from January 25th to 26th. This is his first trip to India as president. Indonesia is a key part of India's Act East policy and its Indo-Pacific vision. India celebrates its 76th Republic Day on 26th January. Gunmen ambush a Pakistani aid convoy in the Kurram region, which has been battling sectarian violence. The attack took place despite a truce ordering the warring tribes to lay down arms. The region is in northwest Pakistan. Since November, more than 100 people have been killed there in the Shia-Sunni violence. An oil giant BP to cut thousands of jobs to slash costs. The British firm will sack nearly 5,000 people, which is about 5% of its workforce. It will also cut thousands of contractor roles to reduce costs. America has done it again. Its fight against Russia is set to hurt the world yet again, especially developing economies like India. Look at oil prices. They're on the rise. This week, they hit a 4-month high because the US is targeting Russian crude once again. It is trying to hurt Russia's oil industry and shrink the supply of their oil. These moves have triggered a rally in the oil market. You probably know what this means. If the prices keep rising, it will hurt your wallet, especially if you're here in India. India is very sensitive to fluctuations in oil prices. It imports close to 90% of its crude needs. So a rise in international prices immediately affects India. Look at these charts. Brent crude is the global benchmark for oil prices. This week, it exceeded $82 per barrel. One barrel has 159 liters of oil. So at the current rate, 159 liters of oil or one barrel costs $82. Brent crude was trading at the same levels in August last year. So this is a 4-month high. Like I said, and experts say it is going to go higher, up to $85 per barrel, maybe even $90. This is according to an assessment by Goldman Sachs. And what is driving this rally? American sanctions. Last week, the US sanctioned 183 tankers. They were part of what's called a shadow fleet. This fleet of tankers does not have any direct link to Russia. But this was a fleet that was supplying Russian oil. So the US sanctioned them. And guess where this oil was going? To countries like India and China. They depend on these tankers for oil supplies. Now the tankers have been sanctioned, so they won't be able to transport Russian oil. Of course, Moscow will be hit, but so will be the countries that were getting this crude supply. Now listen to how the US has defended the sanctions.
That the oil market is very well supplied, that oil prices will stabilize in a place that does not impose undue burdens on American consumers.
There won't be any burden on American consumers. That's what he said, and that's all that Washington really cares about. What about the rest of the world? What about oil buyers across the world? They will feel the impact. In India, oil refiners are taking urgent steps. They're speeding up payments and securing supplies of Russian crude. Deliveries are being rushed. At least 6 tankers of Russian crude are heading to India as we speak. Indian banks too are taking extra precautions. These are banks that process payments to the oil tankers. They have stepped up their paperwork. They're no longer processing payments in US dollars. Instead, they're settling dues in rubles, the Russian currency. Now, this trend makes one thing clear. India's refiners want to lock in supplies, that too at the right price, before the US sanctions take effect. And this urgency is understandable. American sanctions will hit the oil market. They will limit access to Russian oil supply, so the overall availability of oil could take a hit. And that's the second reason why prices are rising, because the supply is shrinking. The US sanctions are making a bad situation worse. They may end up creating an artificial shortage of oil. In fact, India is already feeling it. It is getting less Russian crude. 1 million barrels in December. Next month, it could fall below 8,000 barrels. 800,000 barrels, I'm sorry. And this is concerning also because Russia is among our top suppliers. In the month of November, Russia was the biggest supplier of crude to India. Now, with those volumes shrinking, India will have to look for alternatives, for other countries to source oil from, like countries in West Asia, countries like Saudi Arabia and Iraq. Reports say India has already started negotiating prices with them. So there could be a shift in the coming months, a shift that frankly cannot be avoided, because India cannot afford supply disruptions and sudden price hikes. Inflation has just started to come under control. It is hovering above 5%, which is still on the higher side, but compared to the recent past, it is a 4-month low. India's Reserve Bank wants inflation to settle below 4%. That is the target, below 4%. We are still above 5, trying to come down to 4. Higher oil prices will undo this progress. It will turbocharge inflation. New Delhi is working hard to avoid that, but it's going to be tough because the West has a wrecking ball. It keeps hurting the global economy to push its geopolitical agenda.
this deal was developed and negotiated under my administration.
We could have lost by.
Gaza finally has a ceasefire. It's taken months of negotiations and diplomacy, but a deal has been reached. Hamas agreed to it earlier this week, and on Wednesday, Joe Biden announced it. The fighting will officially stop on Sunday. After that, more steps will follow. Hamas will free dozens of Israeli hostages, and Israel will gradually pull out of the Gaza Strip. The news triggered celebrations across West Asia. It was a mix of relief and joy. Take a look. There is some confusion, though. Israel's cabinet was supposed to meet this morning. The agenda was to approve the deal, but that meeting did not happen. Netanyahu's office says Hamas is eyeing some last-minute concessions. So the cabinet is on standby. They want the negotiators to return from Doha first. Only then will they okay the deal. Hopefully, this is just a logistical delay. Meanwhile, in the US, a new battle is underway, a battle for credit.
Good afternoon.
Technically, this deal was struck during the Biden presidency, but Donald Trump is taking charge on Monday, so who gets credit for the deal? Biden was asked this question on Wednesday. Listen to his response.
Who gets credit for this, Mr. President, you or Trump?
Is that a joke? Oh, thank you.
He did not give a straight answer, but Biden's earlier remarks made one thing quite clear. This was his deal.
Well, you know, this is the exact framework of the deal I proposed back in May. Exact. And we got the world to endorse it. Secondly, it's America's support for Israel that helped them badly weaken Hamas and its backers and create the conditions for this deal.
Donald Trump disagrees. Listen to his statement on social media. This epic ceasefire agreement could have only happened as a result of our historic victory in November, as it signaled to the entire world that my administration would seek peace and negotiate deals to ensure the safety of all Americans. So Biden says his team made it possible, and Trump says his election win made it possible. Which is the truth? Let's look at the facts on the table. Number one, the same deal was proposed by Joe Biden in May 24. You just heard him say the exact same thing, that he proposed it earlier. But Israel rejected it back then. But they seem to have accepted it now, the very same deal. What changed between May 2024 and January 2025? Trump won the election. That is one thing. Fact number two, Trump's envoy was part of the talks. He was in Doha for the negotiations last weekend. He also made a solo trip to Israel. Only after that did Netanyahu change his position. And Arab officials admitted this. Look at what they said, and I'm quoting, Trump's envoy swayed Netanyahu more in one meeting than Biden did all year. The State Department also hinted at this. They said Trump's role was critical.
When it comes to the involvement of President-elect Trump's team, it has been absolutely critical in getting this deal over the line. And it's been critical because, obviously, as I stand here today, this administration's term in office will expire in 5 days.
Let's look at it this way. Biden could not have struck this deal without Trump. The first phase alone lasts 42 days, and Biden will leave on Monday, so he needed Trump to convince Israel and Hamas to offer them guarantees. Even Benjamin Netanyahu knows this. Once the deal was announced, he called Trump first. Only after that did he call Biden. So how did Trump succeed where Biden failed? One reason is the difference in approach. Since October 2023, Joe Biden had made one thing clear. He has no red lines. Israel can kill unarmed civilians. They can torture Palestinian prisoners. They can attack Syria and Lebanon, but Biden would never rein them in. The past 15 months made that amply clear, which is why Netanyahu had no reason to stop fighting. But Trump is more unpredictable. He recently said that war should be over before he takes office.
Well, I hadn't thought of it.
If not, he said, it would not be good for anyone. After that, he also shared a video which was critical of Netanyahu, a video that blamed him for endless wars. All of this clearly built pressure on Israel. A second factor is appeasement. Netanyahu had every reason to give Trump a clean slate. Remember, he negotiated the Abraham Accords. He also has great ties with Saudi Arabia, Donald Trump. So Trump could give Israel what Biden could not, recognition from Riyadh. So perhaps Netanyahu looked at the larger picture. Of course, this is all speculation at the moment and frankly a bit premature because a lot can still go wrong in Gaza. Netanyahu's stated war goal was to dismantle Hamas, to make sure that Hamas would not rule Gaza. That has not happened. That goal is yet to be fulfilled. Plus, the next round of talks will focus on Gaza's future. Who will rule it? And who will reconstruct it? Hamas will naturally want to retain its influence, but Israel will object to it. So while we celebrate this deal, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's also not forget the cost of this truce. More than 46,000 people killed in Gaza, almost 1,200 killed in Israel, and 467 days of fighting. Now let's talk about Joe Biden. The outgoing US president just gave his last speech. He addressed the US from the Oval Office for the last time. He used the opportunity to share some advice and fire some parting shots. His targets seem to have been American tech moguls, perhaps one in particular.
I want to warn the country of some things that give me great concern. This is a dangerous and that's a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a very few ultra-wealthy people. And the dangerous consequences if their abuse of power is left unchecked. Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead.
Biden was lamenting the rise of oligarchs, the concentration of wealth into just a few hands, and these rich and powerful mughals controlling things from the shadows. It is a fair warning. Think about how much money goes into US presidential elections, how much your PACs and super PACs control outcomes. PACs are political action committees / lobbying groups. They're very powerful. They control the system through raw financial power. They pay for campaign rallies, random attack ads, and everything in between. And make no mistake, money plays an outsized role in US politics. So the rich will always have an outsized say. Biden is not wrong about this. But it's a bit rich saying that an oligarchy is taking shape. It isn't taking shape. It has been in place for decades, and he has benefited from it too. In the past, big tech usually supported the Democratic Party. Biden and his predecessors got cash from the oligarchs, and it helped them make their way to the White House. So the oligarchy is not taking shape. It is just altering its existing form to support Biden's rivals. The best example came during the last election when Elon Musk chose to back Donald Trump. Musk was once a self-professed Democrat, but he jumped ship and tied himself to Trump's rising star. The world's richest man is reaping the rewards. He has been given a shiny new government department called DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. Musk will reportedly get space in the Eisenhower building, which is a short walk from the Oval Office. This building houses multiple government departments and the office of the Vice President. Reports say Elon Musk will have an office in the very same building. It definitely raises some questions. After all, DOGE is not an official government agency, not yet anyway. So his office is definitely unusual. But it isn't some watershed moment in American oligarchy. That point was reached long ago. The moment American presidents allowed big oil and big tech to run the show with their incessant lobbying. So by bringing up oligarchy in his farewell speech, Biden just comes across as bitter. Take a look at some of the other things that he said.
Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation, enabling the abuse of power. The free press is crumbling. Editors are disappearing. Social media is giving up on fact-checking. The truth is smothered by lies told for power and for profit. We must hold the social platforms accountable to protect our children, our families, and our very democracy from the abuse of power.
Biden was in power for 4 years. He was the most powerful man on earth. Are you telling me he had no way to hold up companies for spreading lies? Then there was this gem.
People should be able to make as much as they can, but play by the same rules, pay their fair share of taxes.
Here's a thought. Instead of complaining about this, maybe Biden should have just raised taxes. How much tax has Elon Musk paid over the years? How much has Jeff Bezos paid? Have they been paying their fair share? If not, why didn't Biden haul them up? Again, Joe Biden was the most powerful man on earth for 4 years. You're telling me he did not have the power to tax the oligarchs? Or was it a lack of willpower? The truth is, every political party wants rich donors because it's easier to get campaign funding from 40 billionaires than from 400 million ordinary people. So whether it's capitalist America or communist China and Russia, oligarchs will always be supported by the political class. So Biden's warning seems like a case of sour grapes. The oligarchy has always been there. He's just sad it stopped working for him.
When is something going to change?
Get Los Angeles back to where it was.
सैफ अली खान के घर के बाहर हूँ और यहाँ पे जो है ये गेट से अंदर गया होगा ऐसा पुलिस का अनुमान है, क्योंकि ये गेट की जो हाइट है काफ़ी कम है। आप देखिए कि सीधा जो है बेसमेंट में जाता है और बेसमेंट में रात के टाइम में जो है यहाँ पर कोई भी प्राइवेट सिक्योरिटी गार्ड मौजूद नहीं रहता, इसी का फ़ायदा उठाया है। हालांकि पुलिस का ये कहना है कि जिसने भी चोर जो अंदर घुसा था वो सैफ अली खान के घर का चप्पा चप्पा जानता था। अब एक्सक्लूसिव वीडियो देखिए कि बिल्डिंग में जो है मुंबई पुलिस की टीम जो है छानबीन कर रही है। आप देखिए एक्सक्लूसिव वीडियो आप अपने स्क्रीन पे देख सकते हैं, जिसमें हर चप्पा चप्पा बिल्डिंग का जो है मुंबई पुलिस छानबीन कर रही है और सैफ अली खान के घर में मौजूद सभी नौकर जो थे उनकी पूछताछ फिलहाल चल रही है। साथ में वो नौकरानी जिसने सबसे पहली बार चोर को देखा था उसका भी स्टेटमेंट मुंबई पुलिस ने लिया है। मुंबई पुलिस और क्राइम ब्रांच की टीम जो है आप यहाँ पर देखिए, पुलिस अंदाज़ा लगा रही है कि चोर कैसे घुसा होगा, क्या वो पीछे के रास्ते से ऊपर की तरफ गया है या नहीं। आप देखिए एक्सक्लूसिव वीडियो अपने स्क्रीन पर देख सकते हैं, जिसमें मुंबई पुलिस की टीम जो है इस बिल्डिंग का चप्पा चप्पा छान रही है। साथ में ही जो सीसीटीवी बिल्डिंग में करीब 24 सीसीटीवी है उसकी भी छानबीन जो है मुंबई पुलिस ने की है। हालांकि जांच में अभी तक पता उनको नहीं लग पाया है कि चोर एग्जैक्टली कहां से अंदर घुसा था और कहां से वो भागने में कामयाब हुआ। मुंबई पुलिस की टीम जो है यहाँ पर पूरे डॉग स्क्वाड के साथ में पहुंची है। डॉग स्क्वाड ने भी घर के अंदर का मुआवजा किया है। साथ में ही मुंबई पुलिस ने इस वक्त जो है 3 लोगों की पूछताछ कर चुकी है, क्योंकि सैफ के घर में करीब 8 नौकर दिन रात काम करते हैं, उसमें से 3 लोगों का स्टेटमेंट जो है मुंबई पुलिस ने लिया है। हालांकि पुलिस को अभी तक ये पता नहीं लगा है कि चोर जो है भागकर कहाँ गया। इसके बाजू में ही मैं आपको दिखाऊंगी कि यहाँ पर जो है ये जो बिल्डिंग है उसके बाजू में ही एक प्राइवेट बंगलो है। ये प्राइवेट बंगलो की ऊंचाई भी जो है काफ़ी छोटी सी है और ये दरवाज़ा जो है इस घर का जो नाम है पेटफीना नाम है, पीटर फर्नांडिस नाम के बंदे का ये घर है जो यहाँ पर रहते हैं। अब से कुछ देर पहले हमने उनसे बात की थी। ये जो गेट है, ये गेट से अंदर की तरफ जाते हैं और ये रास्ता जो है पूरा सैफ अली खान की जो बिल्डिंग है वहाँ पे कनेक्ट करता है। मैं आपको अंदर लेके जाऊँगी और दिखाऊँगी कि कैसे आप देखिए कि ये रास्ता जो है, ये दीवार जो है वो सैफ अली खान के बिल्डिंग की है। पुलिस को ये भी अंदाज़ा है कि शायद चोर यहाँ से भागकर इस बिल्डिंग में गया होगा। मुंबई पुलिस की टीम जो है यहाँ पर भी आई है, छानबीन की है और ये बंगलो ठीक बाजू में है, सैफ अली खान की बिल्डिंग के बाजू में 12वीं मंजिल पर जो है सैफ अली खान रहते हैं। हालांकि ये जो बिल्डिंग है वहाँ पर सिर्फ 6 परिवार ही रहते हैं। जी हाँ, सिर्फ 6 परिवार ही रहते हैं क्योंकि 12 मंजिल के बिल्डिंग में डुप्लेक्स फ्लैट है। सैफ अली खान का भी डुप्लेक्स फ्लैट है। सिर्फ 6 परिवार के लोग ही जो है इस पूरे बिल्डिंग में रहते हैं।
There's finally some good news from Los Angeles. The strong winds are dying down, at least for now. It should give firefighters some much-needed breathing room, but they have a very short window. Next week, the winds are expected to pick up again, so it's all about making the most of it. As of now, 5 fires are still raging. The biggest is the Palisades fire. Only 21% of this blaze has been contained. Next is the Eaton fire, which is 45% contained. The other fires are much smaller and mostly put out. Officials have reported 25 deaths so far, plus more than 12,000 structures destroyed. A lot of them were high-value buildings. Look at the aftermath of the fire in Malibu, a beachside city near LA. LA is not out of the woods yet, but they're in a position to look at rebuilding, to plan the day after. Such tragedies always have an immense financial cost. But will it also have a political cost? Will it hurt the leaders of California and LA? First, some context. California is a Democratic stronghold. Its governor is Gavin Newsom. Many see him as a presidential contender in 2028. When Donald Trump won, he talked about resisting, about fighting Trump's proposed policies. But now Newsom is on the defensive. His handling of the tragedy is being questioned. Trump fired the first shot last week. He accused Gavin Newsom of diverting water to the Pacific.
Well, it's very sad because I've been trying to get Gavin Newsom to allow water to come. You'd have tremendous water up there. They send it out to the Pacific because they're trying to protect a tiny little fish, which is in other areas, by the way, called the smelt. And for the sake of the smelt, they have no water. They had no water in the fire hydrants today in Los Angeles.
So Trump is on the offensive and his allies are jumping in. Elon Musk is using his megaphone at X. He's blaming the tragedy on California's diversity policy. Apparently, female firefighters are the problem. Obviously, most of this is fake. It's a classic case of political opportunism, but California is not faultless either. Last week, fire hydrants ran dry in the Pacific Palisades. Local officials blamed the higher demand. Well, newsflash, it is a wildfire. So why wasn't the city more prepared? After all the criticism, Newsom has ordered an independent investigation. Same with the LA Fire Department. Its budget was slashed by the mayor last year. Funding was reduced by $17 million, or 2%. And the fire chief warned against it. Last month, she wrote a memo to higher authorities. She said the cuts hampered core operations. Data also shows that the LA Fire Force is understaffed. They have just 1 firefighter per 1,000 residents. Compare that to cities like Chicago or Dallas. They have 2 per 1,000 people. And LA is more fire-prone than either of those cities. A lot of scrutiny is also on the mayor. Her name is Karen Bass. She was out of the country when evacuation started. She was in Ghana for an inauguration. So the Democrats have a lot to answer for. Yes, this disaster was unprecedented, and yes, aid should not be politicized. But Californian officials did not help themselves. The question is, will it hurt them politically? Well, the timing couldn't be worse. Democrats lost the White House, the Senate, and the House in November. They were looking at Gavin Newsom to revive them. but I'm guessing the governor will be busy. Meanwhile, Trump will cash in. He is expected to tour Los Angeles next week. He could use the tragedy to make inroads. But can he flip California? The state had a Republican governor until 2011. Actor Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's a Republican, but he's anti-Trump. And Los Angeles last had a Republican mayor in 2001. So we're talking about a deep blue state. And we know that tragedies can reshape political realities, but it will depend on two factors. One is the reconstruction. Newsom is talking about a Marshall Plan style, massive investments and facelifts. If he can deliver on that, he can limit the damage. The second factor is Donald Trump. He's talking about placing conditions on aid to California, which may not sit well with the people. We're talking about one of the richest states in the US. California gives $83 billion more in taxes than it receives. So Trump needs to be careful. He may end up alienating Californians instead of wooing them. Now let's talk about the incident that has shocked India's financial capital, Mumbai. Bollywood actor Saif Ali Khan was stabbed in his home by an intruder. He was immediately rushed to hospital. The actor suffered some deep wounds, injuries on the neck and near the spine. He's now out of danger, but the incident has raised a lot of questions. Saif lives with his family in an upscale Mumbai neighborhood. Flats here range from 50 to 70 crore rupees. So where was the security? How did this intruder get in? Was it just a robbery attempt or an inside job? Our next report tells you.
It happened in the dead of night. According to police sources, an intruder entered the house next to Saif Ali Khan's building. He then scaled the wall and landed in Khan's compound. Once inside, the intruder took the stairs at the back, reaching the 11th floor of the building. He entered Saif's house via the fire escape. The intruder was hiding in the room of Saif's youngest child, Jay. That's when he was spotted by a help working for the family. She screamed, alerting the actor. The two got into a scuffle. The intruder stabbed Saif 6 times before escaping, and CCTV footage shows him leaving from the rear of the building. Saif was soon rushed to the Lilavati hospital in Mumbai. The actor sustained a major injury to the thoracic spinal cord. It's due to a knife lodged in the spine. There were 2 other deep wounds, one on his hand and the other on his neck. The actor is currently out of danger and recovering.
Surgery was performed in spinal fluid. 2 other deep wounds on his left hand and one on the neck was repaired by plastic surgery. He is completely stable now. He is recovering well.
The exact details of the assault are still not clear. Police have formed teams to investigate. The hunt is on to nab the suspect who has been caught on the CCTV camera.
The accused fire escape का यूज करके इनके घर पे गया था. अभी तक के इन्वेस्टिगेशन में ये एक चोरी का अटेम्प्ट था. एक्यूज को जल्दी अरेस्ट करने की कोशिश हमारी चल रही है. 10 डिटेक्शन टीम्स हैं जो अलग डायरेक्शंस में काम कर रही है.
Meanwhile, messages of solidarity have poured in on social media from Bollywood, from politicians, and from the actors' fans. Many are questioning the lack of law and order and the need for tougher security. The attack took place in Bandra West, an upscale neighborhood in Mumbai. Saif lives in a 12-story building with his family, where the family occupies 4 floors. According to current market estimates, Saif Ali Khan's luxurious residence is valued at a staggering 70 crore rupees. This has sparked a wave of questions online. How could a property of such high value lack robust security measures? Adding to the mystery, initial reports suggest the possibility of an inside job, whether the attacker may have been acquainted with someone in the family's inner circle. The incident has also shed light on the increasing intrusion of paparazzi culture. Many argue that the relentless spotlight on celebrities compromises their privacy, leaving them exposed to such threats in their own homes. Saif Ali Khan is one of Bollywood's most popular actors. He made his debut in 1993, and since then he starred in 70 movies and television series. His father was former India cricket captain Mansoor Ali Khan Pataudi. His mother is actress Sharmila Tagore. He's married to Kareena Kapoor Khan, who also comes from Bollywood's most famous family. As the investigation continues, many questions remain unanswered. Who was the intruder? Was this just another robbery gone wrong, or something more sinister? While Saif Ali Khan recovers, the incident has left a deep impact on the city, raising concerns about the safety of celebrities in the heart of Mumbai.
For centuries, moving freely across borders was a privilege, a symbol of power, trust and status. In medieval times, kingdoms stationed gatekeepers at their walls. They decided who could pass through. Today, those ancient sentinels are gone, but in their place stand complex visa regimes, equally arbitrary and exclusionary. The gates may look different, but mobility is still a privilege, and the cost of rejection is borne by millions. For Indians, this modern gatekeeping has come with a steep price. Let me show you a new report. In 2024, Indians lost 664 crore rupees in visa rejections. That's around $77 million lost. Leading this list of rejections are a handful of nations. New Zealand rejects 33 out of every 100 applications from India. Australia turns away 30 in 100. The UK says no to 17%. The Schengen area, Europe, denies 16%. In December, this list had a new addition. The United Arab Emirates, or UAE, it's a top travel destination for Indians. 1 in every 4 outbound Indians went to the UAE last year. The rejection rate used to be around 1%, but last month it went up to 6%. And this isn't just about the lost money. It's also about deferred dreams, a planned family vacation, a crucial business meeting, or a life-changing educational opportunity, all crushed under the weight of a denied stamp. So why are these visas rejected? Well, there are many factors. Number one, the post-pandemic travel boom. 25 million Indians traveled abroad between January and October last year, which is a 12% rise since 2019. This is fueled by a growing middle class and social media. But while travel is on the rise, so are anti-immigration sentiments and anti-tourist sentiments as well. That's reason number two. Visa policies across the globe have hardened. Take Dubai, for example. The UAE has changed its visa rules. Travelers now need to carry proof of at least 5,000 dirhams in their bank account, a return ticket and accommodation bookings. If any of that is missing, your visa is rejected. Which brings us to the third reason, complicated visa procedures. Look at the Schengen visa. They want a folder of documents so thick it could double up as gym equipment. By the time you're done submitting everything, even your school textbooks will feel like light reading. And let's say you have all these documents. Then it's about getting that visa appointment. For example, the US visa. The average wait time for a US visa appointment is 250 days. I'll repeat that, 250 days for a visa appointment. And finally, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the Indian passport. Every year, the Henley Passport Index ranks passports around the world. The higher your rank, the more powerful your passport. The lower your rank, the more hoops you jump through for visas. India is at the 85th position this year, 85th. This impacts the visa restrictions that Indians face. But let me give you some examples that might raise eyebrows. Kosovo is on the 63rd position. It is not even recognized by half the world. Cuba is on the 80th position, a nation under heavy sanctions. Burkina Faso is on the 82nd position. It is a country under military rule, not exactly the poster child for stability. So what is the logic here? How do these nations outrank the world's 5th largest economy? The West won't answer that. But here's something that India could do. First, use its economic leverage. Use trade relationships to push for better mobility, better access. The West relies on Indian talent, and it's time they offer easier travel for it. Second, consider aligning your visa requirements with Western policies. It would highlight the importance of equitable practices and foster mutual respect. And last, choose visa-friendly nations, the likes of Thailand, Vietnam and Sri Lanka. Most of them have little to no requirements And that can save a lot of headache while traveling. Because at the heart of it all, this isn't just about policies or procedures, it's about access and equality. India is rising on the global stage. Its aspirations should not be curbed by a stamp or a bureaucratic maze. Our next story is about Hindenburg Research. It was an investment research firm known for investigating companies and activist short selling. You may have noticed I said it was all those things. That is because as of yesterday, Hindenburg has shut shop. The company was active for 8 years and it was infamous for getting into high-profile spats with corporations all over the world. Here in India, it made an enemy of the Adani Group. That's when it became a household name. But Hindenburg's main battleground was the United States. That's where the founder, Nate Anderson, was based. It seems Anderson has finally had enough and chosen to throw in the towel. But why has he quit? And what happens next? Our next report has the details.
Back in the day, the name Hindenburg was associated with an airship which crashed and burned. Today, the name Hindenburg is linked to an investment firm, Hindenburg Research. It's a notorious short seller. It investigated companies, made any financial irregularities it found public, and made bets that the company's stocks would tank. Hindenburg would short sell the stocks and reap the rewards if it happened. That was the company's business model. So the name Hindenburg here may have been a reference to the company's stocks crashing and burning. Over the years, Hindenburg took on a host of companies. Some of its fights were successful, like the battle against the Nikola Motor Company. This was an electric vehicle company based out of the US. Hindenburg said it was duping investors. Nikola bought inverters from a supplier, but then claimed to have made them in-house. It released a video of one of their trucks rolling along a highway, but the truck didn't have a working engine. It was just rolled downhill and made to look like it was working. This was definitely fraud, and Nikola's founder was eventually jailed for this. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison. This wasn't the only example of a successful Hindenburg report. They have a list of their victories put up on their website. But there's one case conspicuous by its absence, the case of Hindenburg and India's Adani Group. Hindenburg made a string of high-profile allegations against the Indian conglomerate. This was in January 2023. But that case isn't listed on their track record page, probably because it went nowhere. India found Hindenburg's allegations baseless and even accused the short seller of trying to hurt the Indian economy. So Hindenburg has a mixed track record, and that record came to a close yesterday. The firm's founder, Nathan Anderson, put up this personal note yesterday. Anderson said Hindenburg has been packed up, and he thanked everyone for their support. This has resulted in outright celebrations from detractors and a lot of speculation about the closure. Is it because of all the legal cases Hindenburg was facing? Is it because Donald Trump is about to return? The speculation is endless, and all the reasons will hopefully be uncovered over time. But for now, all we know for certain is what the founder, Nate Anderson, posted. He says there is not one specific thing, no particular threat, no health issue, and no big personal issue. Anderson felt he was missing out. Work was consuming his life. He didn't have time to spend with his family, so he wanted to step back. That's the crux of his message. Whether you believe this or not is up to you. We'll probably get more details in the weeks ahead. But for now, Anderson says he won't be involved in short selling anymore. However, he did add something. Some of his Hindenburg colleagues are starting their own research firm, so the team behind Hindenburg will still be active. They will keep conducting their investigations and making their allegations, just under a different name.
A Harvard MBA is among the most coveted. You do that, your life is sorted. Top job at a top company, 6-figure salary, and a relentless climb up the corporate ladder. But maybe not anymore. Look at this new report on MBAs. 23% of Harvard students were jobless 3 months after graduating. We're talking about a top B school. Most Harvard students get jobs before graduation, yet 23% were jobless even after it. This number was 20% in 2023 and just 10% in 2022. So clearly things are getting worse. And it's not just Harvard. Most B schools in the US have the same story. At Northwestern Kellogg, 13% graduates were jobless in 2024. That is triple the number from previous years. At Chicago Booth, the same story. A career officer at Harvard summed it up best. Let me quote, "Going to Harvard is not a differentiator. You need the skills to back it up." And this wasn't always the case. In the past, the college was the skill. The hard part was getting into a top B school. After that, your career was sorted. But nowadays, that is not enough. Companies are looking for additional skills and talents. Consider McKinsey, one of the biggest consultancy firms in the world. In 2023, they hired 71 graduates from Chicago Booth. In 2024, they hired just 33. Experts say companies are also changing their hiring strategies. Earlier, they would target campus placements. Come, hire a lot, and go. But now companies do smaller, targeted rounds, that too around graduation. And we're seeing that in India as well. The top B schools here are the IIMs, the Indian Institutes of Management. Earlier, IIMs would report 100% placement in 2 or 3 days, but last year was a reality check. Even 2 months on, placement was not 100%. Only 3 out of 6 old IIMs had completed it, and just 1 out of the 15 new ones. What explains the situation? Mainly 3 factors. The first is artificial intelligence. Most jobs are being affected by the use of AI. Management ones are relatively more insulated, yet you can see the effect, especially in the financial sector. Firms like Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan and UBS have created AI platforms. These may not replace you entirely, but they do reduce manpower requirements. You need fewer people for the same jobs. That is the first factor, artificial intelligence. The second factor is oversupply. There are way too many MBAs in the market. India alone produces nearly 300,000 every year. Since 2010, India has set up 13 new IIMs. It's a simple rule of demand and supply. More supply equals less price. Which brings us to the final factor, the demand for specialization. That's what the Harvard official also said. You need the skills to back it up. Nobody wants a general manager anymore. They want something extra. Maybe expertise in digital marketing or data science or artificial intelligence. If MBAs have that, good. If they don't, firms can always hire undergraduates. You get the same specialty at a fraction of the cost. So in simpler words, MBAs need to change. If you're thinking about getting one, keep these things in mind. 1, an MBA alone is not enough. You'll probably have to upskill over it. And 2, you should definitely think about specialized degrees, degrees with real job prospects. Don't blindly fall for the MBA craze. And 3, keep the costs in mind. A good MBA degree is among the most expensive. If you're taking a loan, there is a risk. Weigh all these factors before you jump on the MBA train. Now let's turn our attention to India. It is a historic day for the country. India has achieved space docking. Docking happens when 2 aircraft latch onto each other, and this is crucial for space missions. But it's difficult to achieve. So far, only the US, Russia and China have been able to do it. Now India has joined this elite club. It has become the 4th nation to achieve space docking, and the Indian Space Research Organization, or ISRO, is one step closer to achieving the country's ambitious space missions. Our next report tells you why.
3, 2, 1, 0.
India has achieved a major milestone which cements its place as a global space power. The Indian Space Research Organization has achieved the feat of space docking. This technological milestone underscores the country's space ambitions as it joins an elite group of nations. India has become the world's 4th nation to achieve space docking after the United States, Russia and China. Space docking is a complex process where 2 spacecraft are maneuvered into the same orbit. They are brought closer and finally docked, which means that they are joined to each other. These are two fast-moving heavy spacecraft that are brought together in space, and this is not an easy feat. But docking is essential for space missions. It is used to achieve shared mission objectives, it allows for multiple rocket launches, and it is pivotal for future space endeavours. For India, this includes the Chandrayaan-4. It is scheduled for 2027, and this mission is supposed to bring lunar samples back to Earth. This is the first actual Indian mission which will require docking capability, and India is one step closer to it thanks to this docking mission. It was launched on December 30th last year. It's called the Space Docking Experiment, or SpadeX. It involved blasting off two small spacecraft weighing about 220 kilograms each into low Earth orbit. Their docking was twice postponed on January 7th and 9th due to technical issues because the spacecraft drifted more than expected during the maneuver to bring them closer. But finally, they have been successfully docked, which is a historic moment for India. Lauding the achievement, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has congratulated the team at ISRO and called it a significant stepping stone for India's space missions. After all, India's space ambitions have accelerated in recent years. In 2023, India became the fourth country to land a spacecraft on the moon and the first to make a soft landing close to the moon's unexplored South Pole. Now, apart from the 2027 Chandrayaan mission, India wants to launch its first orbital mission to Venus in 2028, build its own space station by 2035, and launch its first crude mission by 2040, a feat that has only been achieved by the United States. Successfully space docking has brought India closer than ever to achieving these space missions and asserted its place on the global stage and the space race.
सैफ अली खान के घर के बाहर हूँ और यहाँ पे जो है ये गेट से अंदर गया होगा ऐसा पुलिस का अनुमान है, क्योंकि ये गेट की जो हाइट है काफ़ी कम है। आप देखिए कि सीधा जो है बेसमेंट में जाता है और बेसमेंट में रात के टाइम में जो है यहाँ पर कोई भी प्राइवेट सिक्योरिटी गार्ड मौजूद नहीं रहता, इसी का फ़ायदा उठाया है। हालांकि पुलिस का ये कहना है कि जिसने भी चोर जो अंदर घुसा था वो सैफ अली खान के घर का चप्पा चप्पा जानता था। अब एक्सक्लूसिव वीडियो देखिए कि बिल्डिंग में जो है मुंबई पुलिस की टीम जो है छानबीन कर रही है। आप देखिए एक्सक्लूसिव वीडियो आप अपने स्क्रीन पे देख सकते हैं, जिसमें हर चप्पा चप्पा बिल्डिंग का जो है मुंबई पुलिस छानबीन कर रही है और सैफ अली खान के घर में मौजूद सभी नौकर जो थे उनकी पूछताछ फिलहाल चल रही है। साथ में वो नौकरानी जिसने सबसे पहली बार चोर को देखा था उसका भी स्टेटमेंट मुंबई पुलिस ने लिया है। मुंबई पुलिस और क्राइम ब्रांच की टीम जो है आप यहाँ पर देखिए, पुलिस अंदाज़ा लगा रही है कि चोर कैसे घुसा होगा, क्या वो पीछे के रास्ते से ऊपर की तरफ गया है या नहीं। आप देखिए एक्सक्लूसिव वीडियो अपने स्क्रीन पर देख सकते हैं, जिसमें मुंबई पुलिस की टीम जो है इस बिल्डिंग का चप्पा चप्पा छान रही है। साथ में ही जो सीसीटीवी बिल्डिंग में करीब 24 सीसीटीवी है उसकी भी छानबीन जो है मुंबई पुलिस ने की है। हालांकि जांच में अभी तक पता उनको नहीं लग पाया है कि चोर एग्जैक्टली कहां से अंदर घुसा था और कहां से वो भागने में कामयाब हुआ। मुंबई पुलिस की टीम जो है यहां पर पूरे डॉग स्क्वाड के साथ में पहुंची है। डॉग स्क्वाड ने भी घर के अंदर का मुआवजा किया है। साथ में ही मुंबई पुलिस ने इस वक्त जो है 3 लोगों की पूछताछ कर चुकी है, क्योंकि सैफ के घर में करीब 8 नौकर दिन रात काम करते हैं, उसमें से 3 लोगों का स्टेटमेंट जो है मुंबई पुलिस ने लिया है। हालांकि पुलिस को अभी तक ये पता नहीं लगा है कि चोर जो है भागकर कहाँ गया। इसके बाजू में ही मैं आपको दिखाऊंगी कि यहाँ पर जो है ये जो बिल्डिंग है उसके बाजू में ही एक प्राइवेट बंगलो है। ये प्राइवेट बंगलो की ऊंचाई भी जो है काफ़ी छोटी सी है और ये दरवाज़ा जो है इस घर का जो नाम है पेटफिना नाम है, पीटर फर्नांडिस नाम के बंदे का ये घर है जो यहाँ पर रहते हैं। अब से कुछ देर पहले हमने उनसे बात की थी। ये जो गेट है, ये गेट से अंदर की तरफ जाते हैं और ये रास्ता जो है पूरा सैफ अली खान की जो बिल्डिंग है वहाँ पे कनेक्ट करता है। मैं आपको अंदर लेके जाऊँगी और दिखाऊँगी कि कैसे आप देखिए कि ये रास्ता जो है, ये दीवार जो है वो सैफ अली खान के बिल्डिंग की है। पुलिस को ये भी अंदाज़ा है कि शायद चोर यहाँ से भागकर इस बिल्डिंग में गया होगा। मुंबई पुलिस की
The US is days away from a big transition, one that will reshape American politics and society. Obviously, I'm talking about the TikTok ban. It's due on January 19th, which is Sunday, but Americans are not too worried because they are transitioning from TikTok to Red Note. Just one problem though. Red Note is also a Chinese app. People are having a lot of fun with it. They're joking about meeting Chinese spies on the app. What's worse, they're calling themselves refugees, which is frankly a bit ironic. When Americans create refugees, they're homeless and wounded. I don't think switching apps in your AC room counts. As TikTok users would say, it is peak Delulu. Take a look.
So the Chinese spy that I've been working with on TikTok, giving all of my information over to the Chinese government to control my mind through my Chinese phone and my Chinese TV. And no, she's Lao. She's not Chinese.
As I sit here and record this video with everyone staring at me, it's okay because I'm one of the TikTok refugees and I'm used to this. I just want to thank you for welcoming us to this app.
The government said, we're taking away TikTok because the Chinese government having our data is a threat, to which hundreds of thousands of millennial, Gen Z, and Gen X Americans went, and we, myself included, downloaded an even more Chinese app and went, here's our data. Now give us the dancing cats.
I sort of live in a bubble where I don't fully understand what anyone could do with my data. I'm a middle-aged fat woman in the middle of the country. What are you going to do? Are we concerned that I switch from Kraft cheese to Great Value? I don't understand what importance I have.
Hello and welcome to the late night edition with me, Ayushman Singh Jamwal. Big breaking news coming in at the top of the bulletin, where a strong message from the BCCI to Team India after the shambolic 3-1 loss to Australia. BCCI announces restrictions on personal staff and the presence of players' families during tours in order to promote discipline and unity in the team, is the pitch that has come in from the BCCI. Participation in domestic matches is now mandatory as per the new BCCI rules, and there will be exceptions only under extraordinary circumstances, is what the BCCI has put out. The BCCI has also barred players from engaging in personal shoots or endorsements during ongoing series or tours. That is the big piece of news that's coming in after that shambolic, ladies and gentlemen, 3-1 loss to Australia down under, ladies and gentlemen. I'm joined by my colleague Kritsween Wale on the broadcast. So Kritsween, it seems the BCCI is cracking the whip on Team India.
Oh yes, and perhaps like never before, Ayushman. And like you rightly pointed out, to give basic context, the policies come in the wake of the 3-1 series defeat to Australia in the Border Gavaskar Trophy. It's also cost the Indian team a spot at the World Test Championship final, and that's where this is coming from. But to quickly give a brief recap of what these 10 guidelines from the BCCI are all about, number one being participation in domestic matches. Participation in these matches is going to be mandatory going forward for players to remain eligible for selection in the national team. And this is something which was opined by several experts as well right after the series lost to Australia. Following